Good morning. Today's daf yomi is Kesubos Mem Vav Kesubos 46, and we're going to start on the bottom of Mem Hey Amabez, the bottom of 45b, around 15 lines from the bottom. So says the Gemara Tana Rabbanan. We learned in the Brisa, Hamotzi Shemra, the man. And we're going to learn more on today's daf yomi that the Motzi Shemer is the man who accuses his wife of being adulterous when she was a Nara Hamurasa, when she was betrothed as a Nara. And he does this by enticing witnesses to come and testify that she was adulterous. So Motzi Shemer Loka, the punishment for the Motzi Shemer is that he gets lashes, Vinose Mea Sela. And he also has to pay her father 100 coins. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, he always is going to get the lashes, but says Rabbi Yehuda, but the 100 coins, he's only going to pay the 100 coins if he actually consummated. If he did the nisuin, but he did not consummate the marriage, he's not going to pay the 100 coins. And the Gemara says, this dispute between the Rabbana and the Rabbi Yehuda is actually the same dispute that we're going to learn on Mem Vav, on Daf Mem Vav, but the dispute between Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov and the Rabbana. And this is what the dispute is saying. That one position is that the Motzi Shemra is going to get lashes and give 100 selah, whether or not he was Boel, whether or not he consummated, and that's consistent with the position of the Rabbanan in the dispute between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, Yehuda Maroko Sloka Mikomakom, Mea Selah, Baal no saying, Baal and no saying, Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda is consistent with the position of Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov, who says that he only pays the 100 selah if he was Boel, if he consummated, but he always gets the lashes. So the Gemara says, Ika da Amri, there's an alternative version of this discussion, which says, Kulak Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov, that both Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan are consistent with the position of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. And this is how you read their dispute. Motzi Shemer Lokev Enosi Mea Selah, Rusha Bal. That the Rabbanim say that the Motzi Shemer, this man who accuses her, he gets the lashes and he pays 100 coins, but that's only where he consummated the marriage. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda Omer Loko Sloka Mikomakom. Rabbi Yehuda says he always gets lashes. It says the Rabbi Yehuda Loko Sloka Mikomakom. Does Rabbi Yehuda say that he always gets lashes? But we have a brisa where Rabbi Yehuda Omer Balo can't go Balo ain't no okay. Rabbi Yehuda says he only gets lashes if he consummated. So Rav Nachum Bar Yitzchak, it means Rabbi Yehuda says Loka when it says he gets lashes, even Rabbi Yehuda says he always gets lashes. That's Makos Mardus Midrabanan. That he only gets rabbinic lashes. That's called the Makos Mardus, the lashes for being rebellious. So Gemara says on top of Mem Vav Amud Aleph, a different answer. What does it mean? Papa says my Baal. Okay, when it says that Rabbi Yehuda says he gets lashes, what does that mean? It means the Katani Hasam, like it says in another case, that the word Loka means Mammon. It means not lashes, that sometimes it can mean that you have to pay money. The Karle Mammon Malchus. So I ask, do you call the payment of money the same word that you sometimes use for lashes? Do you call it Malchus? Gemara says, yes, that is what we do. Gemara says, V'hatanan, and in fact, we have a source for this, so it's really a brisa. V'hatanya, Omer Chatzi Erki Alai, somebody says, I'm giving my half of my value to the temple. No saying Chatzi Erko, he gives half of his value. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says, Loka, he is Loka, but no saying Erech Shalem. He pays the full value. The Gemara says, Loka, Amai, what did he do wrong? He just said, I'm giving half of my value to the temple. Why is he getting lashes? And so Amar Papa, so Papa says what this price means is Lokeb Erech Shalem. He is afflicted, i.e., he has to, as a monetary payment, that he has a full value of his body to pay. And my time out, what's the reason why we make him pay the full value there? Gezerah Chatzi Arko Atu Erech Chatzio. So because we say we're concerned that if I have to give half my value, that sometimes he will say Erech Chatzio, the value of my half. And if he words it like that, the Erech Chatzio, if he says the value of my half, well, actually what he's saying there is having like Avish and a Shama Tuyaba. He's saying he's giving the value of something which his whole body is dependent upon. I.e., he says, I'm giving you the value of my heart. Well, that's your whole body. And so therefore we make a decree that he has to pay everything, his whole value. But anyways, we see from here the fundamental idea that loka can sometimes mean money. And that's what Rabbi Yehuda says, that Eino loka means he doesn't pay the money. When he's Baal, if he's Goel, he pays the money. That's what it means. Dana Rabbana, and so the rabbis cited Brisa, the Gemara cites Brisa, and it states on Shu Oso, and when it says in the verse that we punish him, Zem Mamon, this refers to the fact that that the husband has a payment of money via through, and that we rebuke him, Zem Makos. This means we give the husband lashes. Where it says it makes sense, split Sham of Anshu Zem Mamon. I understand why it says when we punish him, it means that means he has to pay money, because it says the verse is explicit. We punish him by making him pay money. And it says then he gives it to the father of the Nara, the adolescent. And how do we know? It says when we afflict him, that refers to lashes. How do we know that? So Rabbi Avo told Amanu Yasru mi ben, and ben mi uven mi bin. We compare the word Yasru here to the word Yasru when it refers to a rebellious child. And there it says the word ben. And when it comes to the word, it says ben sorera morah. And when it comes to lashes, it also calls it uvina kosa rasha. Because it says Vayam bina kosa rasha. And so therefore we know that the word Yasru also means lashes. So says the Gemara, as Harla Motzi Shema Minon. How do we know that Motzi Shema is someone who's libelous is against his bride, that it's prohibited from the Torah? So Rabbi Lezer Omer Milo Selech Rachil, that it comes from the prohibition. You're not allowed to be a Rachil. You're not allowed to be a asimmonger. And so therefore this person is in violation of this prohibition. Rabbi Nassan Omer, he says, no, we know you're not allowed to be in violation. You're not allowed to be Motzi Shema, because it says, V'nishmarta mikol davar ra. You should protect yourself from doing anything bad. And so that teaches us that you're not allowed to be Motzi Shema. Rabbi Elazar, my time of Amar, why does Rabbi Elazar not cite the verse of V'nishmarta mikol davar ra, that you have to protect yourself from doing something bad? He said, I need that pasuk to teach us that which Pinchas ben Yair taught, because it says that Pinchas ben Yair taught, and Shmarta called Davara, I guard yourself from anything bad. Person is not supposed to think about something during the day, which will cause him to produce tumah during the night, the spiritual impurity. So you have to protect yourself during the day, so you don't come to produce tumah at night. Rabbi Nassan, my time, why doesn't Rabbi Nassan cite the verse of Oseach Rachel Ba'amecha? Why does he cite the verse of Mishnarta Mikol Davara? He said, Ahu Azar Lebez, and he said this verse of Oseach Rachel Ba'amecha is actually a warning to the court, that they're inconsistent with their decisions, that they're soft to one and hard to the other. So now the Gemara goes into some of the details of the Motzi Shema. Let's say he doesn't tell the witnesses, come and testify for me, but they just came on their own. Okay, he's not going to get lashes. He didn't tell them to testify. And he also doesn't have to pay the money because they came forward on their own and did this. And he and she and her and those who testify falsely against her, we take them all to stone them. So it says either for the adultery or for testifying falsely that she was adulterous. The Gemara asked the obvious question: how could she and the witnesses who testified against her both be guilty? It's one or the other. He owes them now. Gemara says, okay, it means either she or her witnesses testify falsely against or are brought to be stoned. So the Gemara says, what's the reason why he's not going to get lashes or make the payment? Because he didn't tell the witnesses to come. Let's say he told them to go and testify. Even if we didn't actually hire them, then he would be liable for the lashes and the payment. This comes to exclude the position of Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya we learned to the Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Eino Chayav Ad Sheyiskor Eidim. Rabbi Yehuda says you're not liable until such time as you actually hire the witnesses. And you have to hire, the man has to hire the witnesses. The husband has to hire the witnesses in order to be liable. My time of the Rabbi Yehuda, what's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? Amar Rabbi Avo Asya Sima Sima. He learned it from the fact that it says the word Sima in two places. It says over here that you place upon her a claim that she was adulterous. And it states by the prohibition of interest, that you're not allowed to place interest upon them. Just like in the case of neshach, usury, it refers to money. Avkan mamon. So to here also means you actually have to hire the witnesses. The husband must hire the witnesses in order to be liable. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak b'tein Tani Rav Yosef Sidoni Bei Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Asya Sima Sima. So he says, yes, indeed, we learn it from this verse in the comparison of Sima Sima that you're not liable until such time as you actually let's say you hire them, but you promise them not cash, but real estate, or else alternatively, you hire them, but you only offer to pay them less than a penny. No. Or alternatively, let's say shneim beputa. No. Let's say you hire them together, and together you're paying them both 1 penny, a pruta. So by Ravashi also asked the question. Let's say the husband produced a lie, but it was on his first marriage with her. He married her, he betrothed her, married her, divorced her, remarried her, and said that between the first and the second marriage, she was adult. Between the first betrothal and the marriage, she was adulterous. Let's say his brother married her, and then his brother died, and she falls to Yibam with him, and he says, you were adulterous on my brother. So the Gemara says, at least we can answer one of these questions. The Tani Rabbi Yonah as Pitina Sati Leishazeh. It says that the father comes forward and he makes the claim that this man was libelous. He says, because I gave my daughter to this man, which means it means that the prohibition of or the concept of Motzi Shemer only applies if this is the original husband and not the Yavam, not the clever marriage. Gemara says, okay, let's go back to the dispute which we tried to connect to Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan by saying it connects to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov and the Rabbanan. My Rabbanan or my Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Which Rabbanan is this and which Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is this? So the Gemara says, well, it's a Brisa. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. How does the prohibition of Motzi Shemer look? How does it take place? Then let's say you come to the court, Amar Ploni, and the husband says, well, I never found your daughter to be a virgin. If there are witnesses that she was adulterous, Yesha Ksuva Mana. She gets a Ksuva of 100. The Gemara says, what are you talking about? Let's stop the price right there. What do you mean? If there are witnesses that she was adulterous, she gets a Ksuva of 100. Stoned to death. If there are witnesses that she's adulterous. So the Gemara says, this is what it means. If there are witnesses that she was adulterous while she was betrothed to him, she gets stoned. Zinta Meikar, but if there are witnesses that she was not a virgin when she became betrothed to him, Yesh Ksuva Mana. Then she doesn't get a Ksuva of 200, she gets a Ksuva of 100. Nimtza Shemra Eno Shemra. Let's say it turns out that his libel that he accuses, that this accusation he accuses her of is not a valid accusation. Okay, he's going to get lashes, the nose in Meosella, and he has to give 100 coins, Bain Bo, Bain Lobo, whether or not he actually consummated the marriage. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, when do we say that he has to pay the money? Ela Kishabal, only when he actually consummated. Bishlam Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, it makes sense that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says he only has to pay the money when he consummated. I know they'll say, it says in the verse that he had relations with her, consummated. But according to Rabban, he says he pays regardless, as long as he brought her to the chuppah, even if he didn't consummate. What is that word with these words? So explains the Gemara. He came against her with a claim. And he came close to her with this accusation. It makes sense. According to Rabbi Yaakov, he says he only pays if he consummated. That's why it says in the verse. He makes the claim. I discovered your daughter was not a virgin. According to Rabbanan, what does it mean when he says I didn't find your daughter a virgin? The rabbis say regardless he has to pay. The Gemara says sharei b'sulim. It doesn't mean actually a virgin. It means I didn't find witnesses that could support the fact that your daughter was a virgin. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, it makes sense according to, meaning when it says Kshar B'Sulam, Rashi explains, I didn't find witnesses who say that these people are lying, that these witnesses who say that your daughter was adulterous. I didn't find other witnesses who said that they were lying or that they were themselves Adam Zolim in order to support your daughter. Bishlam or Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, it makes sense. According to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, who says he only pays the money if he was consummating the marriage. That's what it states in the verse. That's why the father says these are the proof of my daughter's virginity. But according to the Rabbanan, who say even if he didn't consummate the marriage, he has to pay. What does it mean? He says he says rather this means these are the witnesses who will testify that the husband's witnesses are false. It makes sense. According to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, which it states, I understand. That the husband spreads out the garment to show that she was adulterous. What does it mean when it states in the verse that the father of the girl spreads out the garment and proves that there was blood on the garment, so she clearly was a virgin on the night of the wedding. It means parsu masha samwa, that we clarify the truth of this accusation that he brought against her. Kidetanyu parsu asim, as it states in the Bride, it spreads out the garment. Lamet shebain edim shalzeh ve'edim shalzeh ubaron etzadavar kesimla chadasha. That the witnesses of each one come, and the matter becomes clear like a new garment. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Dvarim kekichtavan. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who says, no, it means that we take the words literally. That means simla mamish. No, that they actually spread out a garment to prove that indeed that the husband had consummated the marriage, and she was not, and she was a virgin on the wedding night. Shalach Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yaakov bar Gior Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan. So he sent this message in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Afagav Shalom Matzina b'Kol HaTorah Kula Shachal HaKasav Ben Bia Kedarko Bien Kedarko Amako. So mentioned, even though throughout the whole Torah we don't find that there's a distinction between Bia Kedarka and Bia Shalom Kedarka. Again, Bia Kedarka is what's called the anal intercourse, and Bia Kedarka is the I guess the regular intercourse. So we say, even though the Torah doesn't draw a distinction, and you're liable for Bia Shalom Kedarka just like you are for Bia Kedarka, of a Motzi Shemra, but when it comes to the person who is Motzi Shemra, the person, then we're going to say there is a distinction when it comes to the accusation of Motzi Shemra. Only going to be liable in a circumstance where he's only going to be liable. He's only going to be liable if he is for lashes and the 100 points. He's only liable even if he has the intercourse shalom kedarka, but he is nevertheless accusing her that she was engaged in intercourse kedarka, because only about bia kedarka are you able to claim that I didn't find her to be a virgin. So he says it must be that he's accusing her of having bia kedarka. Tomorrow says Kiman Ikar Rabbanan. Who could this be like? The Rabbanan don't require him to consummate the marriage. Even though he didn't consummate the marriage, he's still able to accuse her of Motzi Shemer. Ikar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, but according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, on the top of 46 feet, we would require both, because we require the hisness to be with her kedarka, and also herness that she had kedarka. Otherwise, how would he know? No. So we say that Rabbi Yochanan really said you're only going to be liable, and this is according to the position of Eliezer ben Yaakov, only if there was bia kedarka and the motzi shemra about her was bia kedarka as well. Now we have a new topic, the Mishnah and the Gemara. Now we're going to talk about the rights of the father the rights of the father and the husband to the daughter and to the wife. So the Mishnah says, what are the father's rights that he has to his daughter? B'kiddusha, he has the right to collect her money that from being betrothed as a minor and as a nara, b'kasef, with her money, b'shtar, whether she's betrothed by a contract, b'biyah, and also to force her to get married to this person, which one of the ways is through the intercourse. Zakai b'mitziasa dance, and the father also has the rights to any lost objects that she finds, and also to his daughter's salary while she is a minor or a nara. And also the father has the right to revoke her vows. And he also can receive her get if she's being divorced. And if she has and if the daughter has received an inheritance from her mother's house, the father is not able, he's not allowed to receive the dividends of those fruits, but rather what he has to do is he has to put that into a trust for her, and she's going to get it when she becomes of age. Nises, let's say the girl gets married. Yes, or the husband has certain extra rights over the father. What are the extra rights he has? That he's able when they get married, if she brings in something into the estate, he can eat the fruits of that asset while they're married. And he's also obligated to support her. He's obligated to redeem her if she's captured, and he's obligated to bury her. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Afilush ani shel Yisrael." Rabbi Yehuda says, even a poor person amongst Israel, he is required to give her a minimum of 2 flutists to play at the wedding, at the levaya, at the funeral, and a wailer to wail at the funeral. So the Gemara asked the question, how do we know? We said in the Mishnah that the father has the rights to her money from her betrothal. And Gemara says, because of Minalan, where do we know that he has the rights to the money that she was received in exchange for being betrothed? Amar Yehuda, Amar Kra, it says in the verse, that this girl, if he sells her as a slave, as a minor, and when she becomes 12, if the man he sold her to doesn't marry her, or his son doesn't marry her, then she goes free, and he doesn't have to give any the tzachinam that he does not. She goes free, and he doesn't need to pay her for his freedom. Ein kesef ladon zeh means there's no money to her husband, to this master. The Yesh kesef ladon acher, but there's another one who does get money. Manu avian, who is the one? Other that is her father. That's the one who gets the money. So says the Gemara, the Ema with the gun. Maybe she's the one who gets the money. Maybe not her father. The Gemara says, but no, since we say her father is the one who can accept the betrothal money on her behalf, because it says, because it says, my daughter I gave to this man, so would you say that she is going to take the money? Why would you think she would get the money under these conditions when the father got the money when she was betrothed? The Gemara says, but maybe then maybe we will say that the minor girl, the father gets the money because she has no ability to betroth herself, and therefore the father gave it the money. But a nara, an adolescent who does have the ability to betroth herself, but maybe she can betroth herself and she can also take the money. The verse states, no, the verse states when she's an adolescent in her father's home, her vows could be annulled, which means it means to say that all the shevach, all the money while she's in her father's home goes to her father. So that's what it means. What about the fact that we know that it states that Rav Huna says the name of Rav? How do we know that the salary of the daughter goes to the father? Because it says with the yimkor ish espitoa amma. If a man sells his daughter to be a slave, ma amma maseh del rabba. Just like the slave, her salary goes to her master. So to a daughter, her salary goes to her father. So the Gemara says, well, why do we need that extra teaching of Rav Huma Amarav if we could have learned it out? We could have learned that out from, like you're saying, from the Rab Beis Avia. So the Gemara says, so this verse of Minu Rab Beis Avia, it's coming to teach us about Faras and Darmun of It's coming to teach us about the laws of annulling a vow. And we learned this law that the father can annul the vows of his daughter, who's a Nara, because she's in her father's domain, and so therefore he has the right to annul her vows. If you want to say, well, let's learn from the new Rabbi Savia, that just like he can annul her vows, also he gets her salary. We're not going to learn it from that because we have a concept, Mamona Misura lo Yafinam. We're not going to learn out he gets her money from the fact that he can take her vows, because they're two different aspects of law. One is money and one is prohibitions. Why don't we learn out from the fact that he gets the kinas, the fine if she's assaulted or seduced? Gemara says the same idea. We don't learn out money from a kinas, from a fine. If you want to say let's learn out from the fact that he gets her money for humiliation and depreciation, Gemara says no. Shani Boshes is the dam. Davia Nami Shafei. Well, that case is different because the father has a vested interest in her not being humiliated or depreciated, because then the value of her betrothal will go down. Yitzia the kavasa coming married. So it makes sense that the father gets the when the Torah says, it's logical to assume that when the Torah is Mimayit, the Rahmana Yitzia the kavasa coming married. It's logical to say when the Torah limits the daughter going out from the domain of the father and compares it to the departure from the domain of her master. And just like when she goes out from the domain of the father to a betrothal, the father gets the money. Also, when she goes out from her master, who she was sold to, that there's no money that the father has to pay. Mara says, they're not all similar. Hasam Gabe Adon, not going to Rishusal Gamri, but there by the master, she's completely out of his domain. But Yitzia Da'av, Akati Matsura Masiro Chuppah. But when she was betrothed, she still requires being handed over to be fully married. And so Mara says, Mia not going to well, he can no longer know her vows entirely on his own. That when she is betrothed, the father requires the husband's help. They both have to get together to annul her vows in order for the vows to be annulled. Okay, we'll stop here. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address them.